daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. It is Wednesday, the 10th of September, so we're just a few days away now from the return of the Premier League. Proper football is returning, and we'll be building up to the Burnley game over the course of the next few days, leading up to that Sunday kickoff. Okay, so what else is going on in LFC world? Well, Liverpool have just released the team's third kit. We've got the home red kit. We've got the kind of white kit, or the white shirts as our away kit. And the third kit, it's an Adidas Originals edition. So it's got the traditional Adidas logo, and it looks like it's a nod to the 1980s green shirts, or the green kit that Liverpool wore in that period. I'm really pleased that we're back with Adidas, apart from the £60 million a year that the club will pocket, which helps with the cost of transfers and player wages. I just feel that we are an Adidas kind of team, an Adidas club. I was never a fan of Nike making our shirts, and I just think that their shirts were really bang average on the whole. I thought New Balance before them were absolutely fantastic. Their kits were really, really good, and I think the Premier League and Champions League winning shirts from that period, I think they were already iconic shirts, but Nike just never really did it for me. I think they were way too bland. So yeah, Adidas are back. It's just something about those three stripes. It just looks right on a Liverpool kit. You just immediately think of the likes of Steven Gerrard, Fernando Torres in the 2000s, and then obviously those legends in that 1980s period, Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush, Ronnie Whelan, John Barnes. You know, the list is endless in terms of great players from that era. So that's our third kit. It's the green Adidas Originals version, and that's out now. So, you know, definitely worth checking out at the Liverpool store or wherever you get your football shirts from. And speaking of classic Liverpool shirts from the 80s, one of our iconic shirt sponsors from that period was Candy. And now the owners of that brand, Haier, H-A-I-E-R, not really sure how you pronounce that, but they have now signed a long-term commercial deal with the Reds. I don't know how much that brings into the club, but, you know, once again, I think it's a sign of how FSG have built Liverpool Football Club into this commercial powerhouse, so that, you know, we are able now to compete at the very top table when it comes to player transfers, player wages, and, you know, huge credit has got to go to the ownership. I think that they've learned from the mistakes that Liverpool made in the 90s, that kind of drop off when Manchester United took them over. They took them over not just on the pitch, but it was fueled by commercial success off the pitch. And Liverpool were just flat-footed. We were completely, I think, commercially inept, didn't really capitalise on the huge global fan base that the club has. Whereas Manchester United were the opposite. They did do that. And they kind of restructured as a business. They became a business. They weren't just a football club. They restructured into a modern business, and that fueled their success. That's why they were able to go out and spend in every transfer window and buy the best players in the league and pay them the highest wages. And Liverpool just couldn't compete. And I guess we're at the other end of that cycle now, where Liverpool are they are the club to look at. They are the club to aspire to in terms of how do you run a football club in the 21st century? How do you maximize your profits in this modern era? How do you build a world-class stadium? How do you build world-class training facilities? And how do you build a world-class football team? And I think FSG have been at the cutting edge, certainly in the Premier League and possibly in world football as well. And Manchester United are the ones who are kind of stuck in the 90s. They're stuck in the 90s or those early 2000s where, they've got a leaking roof at Old Trafford, the stadium's falling apart, the training facilities aren't as good, and their whole structure doesn't speak to it being a modern 21st century football club. And so they're still floundering, whereas Liverpool are going from strength to strength. And I do see this period of time now as an opportunity for Liverpool to now not just win a Premier League and maybe win another Premier League, but to now press for domestic dominance and cement our place amongst Europe's elites. So you may not be able to dominate the European Champions League by winning it every season. It's very, very difficult to do that. But I think you can be a dominant force, meaning that you're constantly there or thereabouts. You're in the latter stages. You're in finals, you're in semi-finals, and you're winning as well. And I think that Liverpool are, really well positioned to be a club that can now dominate English football and really take that dominance into Europe as well. If you look at some of our current and historic rivals in the Premier League, you look at Arsenal. Yes, they're a very, very good team, and they will again push for the Premier League title this season. But there's still question marks over whether they have what it takes to get over the line. Do they have that killer instinct? Do they have that mentality, that winner's mentality, to really go that extra step? And they've never won the Champions League, so they don't have that status as a real elite football club. I know that's going to grate with some Arsenal supporters, but you can't be an elite football club if you've never won the Champions League. You can't be the best of the best. Yes, Arsenal are a massive football club, and they are a top football club, but then they're just not in that elite level, and they won't be until they win that Champions League. So Arsenal, there are question marks over Arsenal, because if they don't win it this season, I think there's going to be huge question marks over Mikel Arteta. And does that mean then a new manager coming in, and then Arsenal are in a period of transition? So I think there's a huge amount of pressure on this current Arsenal team to actually go and win the Premier League. If you look at Manchester City, I think they still seem out of sorts. First 3 games of the season, they've got 3 points out of 9. And they look to be going through something of a rebuild. They've had a lot of players coming in, a lot of players have left, and there are still these lingering questions over Guardiola's future. And not to mention the 115 charges, which still hover over this football club. I almost get the impression that there's a wish that if Man City aren't doing as well, then, these question marks will go away. But I don't think they will, and they shouldn't go away. And Guardiola, I just cannot see him going beyond this season. And if that's the case, there's going to be more change at Manchester City. So there's question marks over City. Manchester United haven't been Premier League contenders for the last few years, but they are a historic rival for Liverpool. There's huge pressure on their new manager, Ruben Amorim, because last season was just so bad. And they've had, I would say, a decent transfer window, but they are still in a period of transition and instability. They're just a couple of poor results away from there being huge pressure and question marks over the manager. So you don't see Manchester United being a threat to Liverpool anytime soon. Chelsea really are the only other team. Still a very young squad, very good, but always a high turnover of players, and you don't know whether Maresco is going to last the season. So if you look at that and you think that this really is, I think, an opportunity for Liverpool to really break away from the pack and, as I said, just kind of dominate English football for the next few seasons. The Premier League is very difficult to dominate, but I think the conditions are there for Liverpool to try and take advantage of that. And maybe that was part of the thinking this summer with the player acquisitions, the investment in a lot of these new players that have come in, players that are 22, 23, 24 years old, and that can see us through now for the next 4 or 5 years. So, it's all looking positive. I just hope that it's a good sign that the link with the old shirt sponsor Candy has been re-established alongside with Adidas. Hopefully that's a sign that there will be more titles coming along shortly. We're going to go for a very short break now, and when we return, we'll talk about Federico Chiesa, Marc Guehi, amongst others. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Right, okay, so the transfer window in England is obviously now closed, but it's still open in Turkey. And we've seen players come and go from that league. We've seen Andre Onana just leave Manchester United on loan to join Trabzonspor in Turkey. And according to Fabrizio Romano, another Turkish Super League team, Besiktas, have inquired about Federico Chiesa's availability for a loan move. Now, Liverpool, according to Romano, have rejected the offer and have stated that they are not interested in a loan deal. That's interesting, the way that they've worded that. Does that mean that we'd entertain a permanent move? I think Liverpool would. I think as a club, we would look to, I think, at least get back what we paid for Chiesa, which was next to nothing. It's like 10 million. Was it 10 or 12 million pounds? And I'm sure Liverpool would turn a profit on that. But I think that would be down to the player. And I think it's down to Chiesa whether or not he'd want to move to Turkey at this stage of his career, bearing in mind also that it's a World Cup year and he needs to be playing, I would say, in one of the big leagues in Europe. I don't think that Chiesa will want to go to the Turkish league just yet, but I do think that he'll want to move in January, to give him every chance of making that Italian World Cup squad for the summer tournament in America. And Chiesa being left out of Liverpool's 22-man Champions League squad recently, I think it confirmed for him that his game time is going to be very, very limited. I mean, he started out with probably more minutes than he had last season, the whole of last season. But Ekitike has come in now, and Alexander Isak is now come in. And, we've also seen the emergence of Rio Ngamoa, who was included in the Champions League squad. So it's not looking good for Chiesa, and I think that I think that he'll probably reject a move to Turkey, but look to push for a move in January. Centre backs. Let's talk centre backs. There are lots of reports in the media today that Liverpool's sporting director Richard Hughes has met with Ibrahima Konate's representatives over this international break about securing a contract extension, and that the representatives have apparently been at pains to say that no deal has been made with Real Madrid, because that's the rumor, that's the inevitable rumor that Konate is not signing a new contract because Real Madrid are waiting in the wings, and that a kind of verbal agreement has been made between the two. Konate's camp are, they're adamant that that's not the case. We've heard this story before. You just never know, do you? But I do think this talk that it's Real Madrid. I think PSG are in the mix as well. I think they are maybe even a more likely one than Real Madrid. I think they're right up there as a viable option for Konate. If he does want to move on a free transfer, he's got the choice of going to Real Madrid or going to his hometown club in Paris. So that's one to look out for. Talking of free transfers, Marc Guehi, who came so close to joining us on deadline day, no surprise, he's now a target for Real Madrid to pick him up for free in the summer. I don't know what's going on with Real Madrid. They just seem to be on the hunt for all these free transfers. But Liverpool, on the other hand, I should say, reports suggesting that Richard Hughes has no intention of going back in for Guehi during the January transfer window. They're not prepared to pay a fee of, I think it would be around about £20 million for a player that they can pick up for free in the next few months. And so they will wait to compete for his signature in the summer. I hear a lot of talk that there's a lot of fans on social media saying that Liverpool should just strike and just snap him up in January. I think the club is showing confidence. They're saying, look, we're not going to splurge £20 million out of fear that Real Madrid will snap him up in the summer for free. The club have done the legwork. The terms are all done. It's now up to you, Marc Guehi. If you want to play for Liverpool Football Club, then you will sign the contract in the summer, as you were prepared to sign the contract this summer. So I don't disagree with that policy from the club. I don't see why they should pay £20-25 million to Palace after the absolute fiasco in the summer. So if we get him for free, we'll get him for free. If not, we'll just move on. And as I said, Real Madrid are going to be waiting in the wings. They will try to snap Guehi up. But, it's going to be down to him. Does he want to join Liverpool Football Club with all the plans, all the players that have come in, we're champions, or do you want to move to Madrid and probably sit on the bench with Trent Alexander-Arnold? We'll see. But that is all for today. You've been listening to the Daily Liverpool podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. We'll be back in Premier League action away at Burnley, so we'll have all the build up to that game and the return of the Premier League in the next few days. Please support the show by following us wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.